Over the course of the last week, I found myself looking at different games on PlayStation Plus, and though many had caught my eye, one stood out more than any other game. A game that has universally confused audiences and created a divide amongst many gamers. That game was AMC's The Walking Dead Stranding Survival Instinct. Now, I had played it briefly when it first came out, and like many other people, I was stunned by how gorgeous it was, but that wasn't enough to get me hooked. Everyone was so excited for Kojima Productions' first solo project without Konami, and all the stuff that we had seen about it was even more exciting. But before I get into any of that, I gotta bring it back to August 12th, 2014.
Now, oh fucking God!
Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro collaborated in directing what was revered as the scariest video game of all time, PT, which stands for Playable Teaser. Your character wanders this seemingly endless hallway, listening to this radio show about how a father murdered his family, and the hallway gets spookier and spookier as it progresses, until a big scary bastard comes out and says this.
To hide in the bathroom.
Ooh, where's the fucking Galaba? A little while after its release, someone figured out that if you do a funny little dance in the hallway, you'll actually escape the nightmare, and be greeted with a gorgeous CGI cutscene of Norman Reedus walking down a desolate street, where it's revealed to be a teaser for an upcoming game in the beloved franchise,
Resident Evil!
This was the time to be into video games. As a Silent Hill lover, I was incredibly excited. Fans of Metal Gear were going bananas because Kojima makes insanely good games. And movie lovers were like, the dude that made Pan's Labyrinth is making a horror game with one of the biggest minds in the video game field? Our psychological health is taking a nosedive, guys. PT became one of those games that every single content creator you knew made a video on it, and in just a month it reached over 1 million downloads. Unfortunately, none of that mattered. Konami announced that their contract was up with Hideo Kojima, and since he had been consistently talking shit about the abusive work environments that Konami had been facilitating, he said bye-bye. With that, Konami shut down the development of PT and had it removed from the PlayStation market. If you downloaded it and deleted it, that was it. You could not reinstall. As at the time of recording this, PS4 consoles with PT pre-installed are going from $700 to $1,200. That is a lot of bones, considering that half of the players don't even have the current generation of consoles. On top of all that, they had him barred from joining the Game Awards because Metal Gear 5 was going to be winning a bunch of awards that year, and they didn't want him there to accept them. The hopes and dreams of having the best horror game and Silent Hill title died in the rain like a fucking idiot. But in December of 2015, everything changed. Kojima Productions was founded, and it was owned by the big boy himself. And in E3 of 2016, we got a very exciting and cryptic trailer of Norman Bingus naked on a beach holding a baby with a bunch of dead whales and shadow demons above him, and it was called
Metal Gear Solid!
Suddenly, everyone was jumping for joy. Kojima's bringing it back, baby! We're gonna have a crazy game, it's gonna be game of the century! But one thing was going through everybody's mind, and nobody could ignore it. Was this going to be anything like PT? And we learned absolutely nothing until November 8th, 2019. And the results?
What's this? Ah!
Were immensely underwhelming. For me, what was expected was a weird thriller that took place in a post-apocalyptic world. I got the post-apocalyptic world part right. You get into the game with some of the most graphically stunning gameplay cinematics that have ever graced a screen. Attention to detail was out of this fucking universe. The movement alone was incredibly well thought out, and it felt like you were actually piloting Norman Osborn. The problem with that is that it felt like you were actually piloting Ozzy Osbourne. You start running and you hit a patch of rocks and eat the biggest helping of shit ever, which is great for realism, but had really not been done in a video game before, at least to this degree. There was some cool ghost action going on, but you couldn't see them, so you had to rely on a big, dumb, stupid idiot baby, who, like many alt-girlies I know, has dreams of Mads Mikkelsen.
Today's Mommy's birthday.
Only reason you need this dumb baby in the first place is because it was taken from its mother's womb before their death, thus creating a still mother that serves as a link between the living and the dead. And with that, it can detect BTs, which stands for Bahoo Tonka Truck. And to top it all off, our goal isn't even to fight these ghosts, or to be afraid of them, for that matter. That's not what this game is about at all. According to Kojima, get ready, I'm about to say the big funny everyone quotes when talking about this game. This is a new genre of game. game called Strand-like gameplay. What the fuck is that, you may ask? Well, it means you deliver packages for a company called Bridges, which is a big company in cahoots with the remainder of the US government, which just consists of like 4 guys and the president, who is actually your mommy. But you don't like her to be your mommy, so you change your last name to Bridges. That's right, the main character's name is Sam Porter Bridges, because he works for Bridges, much like my close friend Joey Amazon. Oh, and then she fucking dies, so you have to take her body to the incinerator, because when someone dies, if their body isn't burned fast enough, it triggers a void out, which creates a big massive fucking crater. And then there's his sister, who is dead but isn't really because of a beach somehow, reminding him that his name is actually Sam Strand in the weirdest way.
Listen, you are Sam Strand.
No, I'm not. My name is Sam Porter Bridges.
A funny word, Strand. Strand is part of rope or bond, while stranding means being washed up on the shore. And being stranded is when you can't go home. I'm stranded now, Sam.
She's trying to become the president, so she needs your help to connect everybody to Wi-Fi so that they can share ways on how to deal with the BTs. And BTs are ghosts that are made of beryllium, which is a chemical that makes the rain age you if it touches your skin. And there's a whole group of... By the way, I was going to tell you all about this shit, this next part, and in order to do that, I would need to die in the game. I haven't died yet. I'm like 10 hours into the game. I haven't died yet. This game is easy mode, but that's an issue for another time. So instead, here's a funny little picture of a dog. There's a whole fuck ton of beryllium in the air because of the Death Stranding, which was the cataclysmic event that put the entire world into shambles. And because of all the beryllium in the air, it created a bunch of people called repatriates that when they die, they trigger a void out like a regular person, but then they come back to life because they have a connection to a beach somehow. And Sam drinks name brand Monster Energy and pees all over the place. And Sam, who is Norman Reedus' character, is a fan of Norman Reedus' show on AMC called Ride with Norman Reedus.
You know what I'd like to be doing right now? Watching Ride with Norman Reedus. Hell yeah.
So cool. It should be on Ride with Norman Reedus.
And he gets seriously injured if anyone touches him, so he's a super loner, but they trusted him to put the entirety of the United States back together and take it back to the BTs and the terrorists, all while being backed by Hideo Kojima's Spotify playlists.
All that info is given to you in the span of about like 30 minutes in the game.
Unlike most people, I like to listen to the lyrics of the songs that I like. I like to find a deeper meaning that will allow me to connect to the artist's creativity and their expression of their self-image. But if I'm going to stick a me sticker of approval on something, I don't want to seem like a fucking idiot when I recommend it to a bunch of cool people and they tell me that it's actually an allegory for how cool it feels to sit on a jar. I do this with all media, whether it be movies or even video games, because most of the time you'll find one that has a much deeper meaning than you think it does. So when I first busted into this game, I proved Kojima right. He said before release that Western audiences probably weren't going to understand it because it's not action-packed and filled with violence and doesn't have a straightforward story. However, that always peeved me a little, because when the fuck did Metal Gear ever have a straightforward story or was easy to understand? It became one of those games that I still respected for trying something new and succeeding in certain aspects, but it wasn't for me. So I put it down, and I didn't pick it back up. Until about last week. I was baffled by the notion that I should give it a fair shot. Not only was there a sequel coming out that also looked really interesting, but I had heard good things about it, and once you get into the story, it's really good, but you gotta take the plunge. So I decided to consult my friend, The Puck, expert in Kojima field, to see if I should give it a shot.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So then it was settled. I initially went into it thinking I could just no-brain the game and just deliver packages for a while until I get bored, but then I started mapping out locations and learning how to walk again, and I realized that I didn't need a map anymore. Because I was literally walking around and soaking in the levels, I realized it's really easy to figure out where you're going after a minute. Memorizing the map is a lot easier to do in this than games like GTA or Red Dead Redemption, mainly because there's not much around, but also because you're walking on foot throughout the entire territory. And then they introduced the mules. These bunch of half-a-meatball losers think that they're just gonna beat the shit out of me and steal my stuff, but I said, nah.
Yeah, belly flop. Belly flop on me.
I see how, to a new player, hearing this sound, it could be a little bit daunting and maybe even stress you out a bit. However, beating the dog shit out of the mules has become a big part in the progression of my game.
Don't wake up.
Essentially, I look around and I say, hey, I'd like to build this road, but I need materials. So I find a mule camp on the map, have a lovely drive over there, beat the absolute dog shit out of them, then rob their entire base blind.
I hope it was worth trying to fuck with me, because your entire operation just got robbed.
I started this game on normal difficulty, and after a couple of hours of not having anything to fear, or any fuck-ups at all, I decided to crank it up a notch, and it's still easy mode. Come on, Kojima. I remember when you fucked with the kids' heads in that Psycho Mantis boss fight. I know you can make shit difficult. This game is covered in beautifully rendered landscapes and immersive gameplay, and because of that, my favorite things about this game is, of course, the funny. It is very clear that they spent most of the development process on the landscapes and story and on-foot traversal, but the vehicles, they are most definitely hilarious. I get caught on the smallest pebble constantly, and it brings whatever momentum I had to a dead halt. There is almost zero traction on these tires. Vehicles are a major part of this game, which is why it boggles me as to why there's not enough care and attention put into this part as there is others. Like, this is easily the worst mechanic in the game, yet it is such a vital part of the game.
This is what I'm fucking talking about.
Cyberpunk 2077 was a glitchy, disgusting mess when it first came out, and I honestly would have preferred vehicle mechanics on day one Cyberpunk than the ones in Death Stranding 6 years after its release.
This is what I'm fucking talking about.
I feel like with the media nightmare that CD Projekt Red had, having companies that never issue refunds having to issue refunds and then turn around and fully fix their games so much that the mostly hated game score turned into an overwhelmingly positive one in just 2 years, Kojima Productions could have easily made the fucking cars move better in 6. Another big issue that I have with this game is the amount of tutorials. God forbid you do something new, because it'll tell you in the biggest format possible that you just did something new in 3 separate ways. The buttons, the tip pop-up, and the detailed voice-acted dialogue telling you what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, and how it affects the UCA. There are so many fucking tips and messages. This is how many I've received since starting the game.
It's not that much.
I was in Act 2 when I recorded that bit. In all seriousness, I'm liking this game a lot. And even though I have barely scratched the surface as to what this game has to offer, I'm still loving my experience. And I have to say, I have to recommend this to anybody. Give it a shot.
I didn't know Fortnite escape crew.
I'm having a bad day.